Feminine traits men love in women. If you'd like to discover what makes a man crave you, want to chase you, want to see you as a long term relationship potential, not just a short term situation, a fling, or somebody that he loses interest in and rejects, then you're going to want to pay attention because we're going to be covering that in our live training tonight. It's going to be a Q&A format, so make sure to post your questions. And we have a special guest, Matt Coast, joining us. So it's going to be me, my wife Antia, and Matt Coast. We're all going to be fielding your questions and sharing nuggets of wisdom in the feminine traits that men really love and crave. So we'll start it off. Welcome, Matt. How's it going?
Hey, what's up? Thanks for having me. Happy to be here. I appreciate you having me on your live stream.
Yeah, you may recognize Matt from such places as YouTube and all over Facebook and other places.
Instagram.
Instagram.
TikTok, there's lots of places. I show up everywhere that they allow me, and they don't kick me out. They don't kick me out. I'm there. All right.
That's where you want to be. Those are the good places. And then,
That's
of
right.
course, lovely Antia Boyd joining us. Hello.
Aloha.
All right. Well, let's start it off with the feminine traits. One I want to kick us off with is vulnerability until we get some questions in here. Because one of the feminine traits that me and Antia talk a lot about, I'm sure you do as well, Matt, is vulnerability and how it can make a man feel safe to open up himself. It can make him start to feel like he can be the protector, the provider. And vulnerability really is you being willing to share your heart and open up in a way where your guards are let down. Because one of the most masculine things a woman can do is put on her armor and this protective shield of, I don't want any men to get close to me, and I don't want a man to abuse me and hurt me like other men have in the past. But what happens is a man can't really feel your heart. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, Matt, around vulnerability.
Sure. I could talk about it all day. Vulnerability is a superpower. Okay. We'll start off with that. It is a superpower. It is strong. It is powerful. Right. And so one of the things about vulnerability that's really, really cool, and I get a lot of women that'll come to me and they're like, oh, Matt, how do I get my guy to be more vulnerable? Right. And I think that that's something that's really an interesting thing to think about, and it's valuable for him to be vulnerable. But there's a thing that they teach in psychology. It's called the Go First principle, and the Go First principle is about like being a leader in this particular situation. So if you want somebody to feel more comfortable around you, and you are like, hey, I'm going to be vulnerable, I want them to feel like they can be vulnerable, you can lead that. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're, in your masculine or whatever. But what it does mean is that you're connecting with yourself and you're being vulnerable and you're opening up a space for him to come in and be vulnerable as well, which can be a very, very scary thing. Vulnerability is scary. It can be very scary. And so, however,
Say it one more time, Matt.
Sorry, what?
Say it one more time. You said
What-
very scary 2 times. Say it one more time. That it's
What,
very
you want to
scary.
hear it more? You want to hear it
Yeah.
scary? It's scary. It's so scary. But yeah, it can be very, very scary, right? Like that's literally like vulnerability is about removing that armor and showing parts where you are vulnerable, where it's soft, right? Where you could be hurt, right? That's like some of the essence of what femininity is having this container where you feel safe so that you can open yourself up and connect to another human being. And that is a very, very powerful thing. And it makes guys very attracted to you because most guys are walking around with a suit of armor on and they're going, this person said that, and this, that, get away from me, right? And when you can come in and connect with him through your heart, through your vulnerability, through your softness, and connect with him that way, it'll open him up in a new way. It can open him up in a new way where he's willing to be vulnerable with you, where he's willing to connect with you, where he's willing to let go of some of his armor and actually feel and be there with you in the present moment where you're like really connecting and feeling each other, and then you're getting all like steamy hot together, and you're like, oh, this is so great. I love being around you so much, you big manly man. And he's like, oh, I like being around. Okay, this is too much. All right.
We're just gonna make a script and we're just gonna act it out here, and it'll be probably more educational, at least more entertaining for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We'll turn this into a reality TV show.
Vulnerability is the best. Reality TV show, vulnerability. Let's do it. Hey, Brody, how you? Okay, let's not do that. Okay, let's
It's like
just
all
go
those
back.
reality shows where they're like getting naked, right? Because it's meant to be a metaphor for like getting emotionally naked with each other. And sometimes I think that could be important for people to actually, dress in a way that makes you feel vulnerable. Like if you're having a hard time opening up, like maybe try wearing clothes, wearing your hair in a way, maybe letting the hair down is obviously the most stereotypically symbolic way of becoming vulnerable. But embodying that can also probably trigger the emotional ability for you to open up and be emotionally vulnerable with a man, whether it's a first date, whether you're dating for a while. Do you have any thoughts on that, Matt? What a woman can do to kind of embody her emotional availability? And then I want to hear from you too, Antia Schnucky.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're totally right on that. There's this saying in the personal development world where they say, how you do anything is how you do everything. And
Right.
so everything that's going on with you on the outside is a reflection of what's going on the inside with you. And so if you're spending all your time, like if on the outside everything's hard, and like if you look at guys, a lot of guys that are like really just jacked, a lot of times they're doing that because they're trying to make sure that they feel safe. Right. A lot of guys that go out there and they like learn martial arts and stuff, they want to feel safe. And so what they do is they make it so that they're really strong, they're really big, they intimidate people, they scare people, and they feel good about themselves so that they can feel safe, right? And the same thing's going on with you, right? You do things, and we can look at your life and say, okay, these are probably some of the things that are going on with you internally, because the whatever you're doing on the outside, how you're dressing, how you talk, the way you stand, the way you interact with people, is all a reflection of what's actually going on the inside. And so looking at your outside and saying, hey, how can I create more vulnerability on the outside? How can I express myself more? How can I, come from where I'm feeling and what I'm doing more, so that I'm bringing some more vulnerability out in my expression? That can actually have an impact on your inner self as well, so that you're coming from a place of vulnerability. Does that make sense? Am I saying crazy things over here?
Mm-hmm. Oh, totally. What do you
I
say,
always say,
Hansi?
do I speak Swahili? Like anybody still got lost somewhere along the way? You know what I mean? But I love that, Matt, right? Because you're talking about that you're handing a man a resume, with your beingness. And I think so many women get this wrong, right? I get from women all the time, and you may too, Matt, right? Like, well, I don't know if he's a psychopath. So on a first date, I'm just gonna, tell my deepest secrets with him. And what if he's a narcissist? Like a narcissist just waits for you to share your deepest secrets with him, so he can then take advantage of you accordingly and gaslight you and all the things, right? And I say, look, vulnerability doesn't have to be like sitting the man down and being like, we're having this deep, like heavy, deep, dark, secret conversation, right? It can literally be, hey, you know what? Matt, you mentioned so many different pieces. Actually, I lost you at when you talked about, when you went to the zoo and whatever, and to just be honest, right? Because sometimes we women can be like, I don't wait. Where was he now? Now he does like this jump. Now I don't understand where he is now. I don't know how we got here. But then just like, yeah, no, it's great, right? So we kind of go into this performance mode and maybe ask another question. So then it's not awkward that we actually didn't follow anymore, right? So sometimes it can be vulnerable to be like, hey, Matt, or hey, Brody, or hey, whoever, you know what I mean? Like just you might be, you know what I mean? I'm noticing something, you know what I mean? It'd be like, is it okay if I share it with you? I'm actually noticing, I didn't make the connection between this and that. So it can be something simple like that. Just showing up authentically. That can feel vulnerable, because if you're afraid to come off as stupid or inadequate, or, if you are an emotionally unavailable parent where, we're taught, well, don't bother anyone, right? So like, don't, what I mean? Don't ask more questions or anything like that. Just kind of go along with the program and just kind of mute your own sort of, expressions, right? That can be really vulnerable.
Yeah, totally.
Anybody wants to like, I have more to say, but I just want to kind of, see what are the thoughts and or disagreements.
Yeah, and by the way, again, any women watching, feel free to post your questions or comments below this video, and we'd love to answer them, support you. Anything related to a man you're dealing with, you're interested in, he's ghosted you, he's pulling away, some other situation, we'd love to support you with that. And yeah, I think that's a good amount we've mentioned about vulnerability. One basic concept that I want to talk about and get your perspective on too, Matt, is receptivity. And receptivity is a basic feminine principle, but when a woman is receptive to a man's leadership, when she's receptive to his masculine energy, when she's receptive to pleasure, when she's receptive to the world, when she's receptive to impressions, that is often a trait that men find endearing. I know I find it endearing because it shows that you are willing to be the yin to his yang. You're willing to follow. And in any dance, you can only have one leader and one follower at any time, any partner dance. I met my first girlfriend. I was very involved with West Coast swing and different ballroom dances when I was in college. And that's one of the principles I learned through the dance is how hard it is when you have two leaders. You can't dance. The dance falls apart. It becomes a mess. It actually becomes a fight at some point, which you see so often in relationships. So it's so valuable to a man when he can find a follow to his leadership that can let him take the lead and guide her on a pleasurable journey. Of course, if you can't trust a man, if you don't feel safe to submit to his leadership, you don't have to do that. But if it's a man that you feel he knows where he's going, he knows what he's doing, he has a vision for the relationship, he's becoming what you might call the spiritual leader of the relationship, that for you to submit and follow his leadership and follow his guidance and enjoy it as much as he's providing that enjoyment, that can be very endearing to a man and can make him fall in love, because now he feels like, hey, this is a woman I can see the rest of my life with. I can create a life with her. I can build a life, and she's going to be that nurturing feminine force next to my masculine leadership and guidance. Of course, you have to find a man that can embody that. But once you do, it can be very powerful. What are your thoughts on that, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you on that. Obviously, like what you were saying, you need to have a guy that actually is deserving of that. I think one of the problems that we're running into in our culture these days is that there's this push that society's pushing women to be more and more masculine, and it's pushing men to be more and more feminine. And I think that there's kind of this disconnect that's going on right now with men that are really in their feminine and women that are really in their masculine, and they're both looking at each other and going, like, I want you to be more like me, there's whenever you have two people together, I think, in my opinion, and what I've seen over the years in doing this, is that it's better to have a man that is a leader and that can be masculine and take that role. And at the same time, what I've also seen is that a lot of times, if you're a woman and you're already with a man, let's say you're already in a relationship, because I was looking at a comment in the chat, someone was talking about how they're married, and there's some other people talking about some things. But if you already have a man that's, and he's in his feminine, or he's not stepping up, a lot of times just stepping back into your femininity, stepping back into your receptivity, stepping back into just like leaning back a little bit, a lot of times guys will end up stepping up as a result of that. And a lot of times guys lean back themselves and they become receptive themselves. If a woman is taking the lead on things, she's trying to run everything, she's trying to do everything, for a number of different reasons. One is because you can only have one person that's leading at a time. When you try to have two people that lead, it turns into this fight, right? And then it becomes a competition of who's going to lead who, right? And most guys, I don't think, want to deal with that. They don't want to experience that. They want somebody like what Brody was talking about, somebody who is their, the yin to their yang or whatever. And, somebody who's going to complement them, somebody who's going to be a partner to them, somebody who's not, they don't have to fight for being the masculine one, being the leadership, person in the relationship. They have somebody that is going to be with them on that ride and will, complement what it is that they're doing. And so, I think that it can be a very, very powerful, positive thing to do that.
Yeah, well, there's an interesting point you mentioned, which is if a woman's dating a feminine guy, I feel like there's this period of going through the fire that a woman has to face and a man and a relationship has to face, where a woman has decided, I'm no longer going to be the masculine. I want a man who's going to be the protector, provider, who's going to take care of me, who's going to invest in the relationship, who's going to move things forward in the relationship. He's going to commit to me. He's going to value me. He's going to prioritize me. You have to take this leap. If you're that woman, there's this leap you have to take where you're going into the fire. There's this old saying, if you want to make it through hell, you have to keep going. Well, what happens is you stop being in your masculine. And now what's happening in the relationship is nobody's being in their masculine. So you're going to go through a period where there's chaos. There's fighting. The man is scared and unsure what to do because the dynamic has changed. He may even lose interest for a little bit. He may get more interested. He may be now so interested that he's like afraid of losing you, or something could happen. He's like, why is there this shift? And so you go through this period of chaos. But what happens is two things. Either number one, the man is going to step up and say, okay, you're no longer being the masculine. You don't even have to tell him that you're doing this. If you just do it, he's going to energetically figure it out and be like, oh, wow, somebody's got to take the leadership here. We're on a ship without a captain. The car, nobody's at the wheel. So he's going to take the wheel at some point. And it could be chaos in the midst of that, but then he's going to take the wheel and he's going to start stepping up and developing his leadership capabilities, developing his masculine capabilities, and the polarity is going to start coming back to your relationship, where now he's going to be more attracted to you. You're going to be more attracted to him after that period. Now, the other option that can happen is he's not that guy. He has no masculine energy left in him. It's been sucked dry from having a relationship or a life where that was either never allowed, not acknowledged, or he's been dominated and his self-esteem is essentially zero, and he's going to fade away. He's going to just remove himself from the relationship, or he's going to, spiritually die essentially. And he's just going to have to go on his own journey and figure it out. But either way, it's going to be a win for you, because what you're doing is you're creating now a situation where you're going to have a masculine man in your life, or you're going to create space for that masculine man to come in, that you can have a relationship that you're deeply fulfilled by. Do you have any thoughts on that, Antia?
Oh, a lot. For sure, because part of it is also, when women are masculine, right, is because they have a lot of negative associations towards the feminine, right? So do they make the feminine mean it's weak, or it's passive, or it's needy, or it's, you know what I mean? And I hear this a lot from my high-powered women, right? Like, feminine, I saw my mom was like subdued, and she wasn't really speaking up, and she really got like rolled over, right? So like really watching, like, how can you create a new relationship with the feminine, right? Because like you probably have a relationship that doesn't serve you, there's this functional relationship, a limited viewpoint, and how can you just go more into the unknown, which in and of itself is the feminine, the void, and be like, what else could the feminine be, right? Like I made it mean, right? With like meaning making machines. Like I think we've all gone for Landmark, we're meaning making machines. So you made it mean, that feminine means this and that and the other. But what else could it mean?
Yeah, I want to answer some questions here as well. We have a couple coming in. This one I thought was interesting. So Teresa said, do you think he is interested in me? We are texting every day and we only dated once, and the second date will be to his house and cook. Do you think that's a good idea? Then we will go to a movie. Well, the first thing I want
to Matt and see what Matt
yeah,
has
do you want to respond to that first, Matt?
I sure I can respond to it. Sure. I would say do not go to his place for a second date. In fact, do not go to his place. So a home is it's a hookup location, right? Sex can happen there, people. All right. And should he be pushing you towards that? Absolutely not. And it's also your job to make sure you're putting yourself into a good situation. And so I suggest that you do not cook dinner. Cook dinner is it's actually like speak for like, let's hook up and have sex. And so my suggestion is that you do not do that. Don't meet up at each other's places until you're ready to at least start moving in that direction. And I recommend that you don't do that until you're in a relationship. So, so how do you know what he wants? Well, there's no way for us to tell you exactly what it is that he wants. But what I will tell you is that it's not a good idea, and that you should just continue to meet out in public, continue to date like real dates, right? Like we used to do this thing back in the day. I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's called dating. And it was like when people, like the guy would meet the woman and they'd go to dinner, right? And they'd like learn about each other and stuff. And then after they'd learn about each other, they'd decide like, hey, this is somebody that I could potentially grow with and have a relationship with. Let's do this for a while, right? And you both talk to each other about what it is that you ultimately want. Oh, you want kids? I want kids. That's amazing. You're looking to get married one day? I'm looking to get married one day. That's amazing, right? And you have all these conversations. And after a couple of months, right, it takes 3 months for like after you meet somebody to really like have them start letting down their guard and actually start knowing who these people are. Does that mean you have to wait, 3 months until you either hook up or get into a relationship? Not necessarily, but I will tell you that it's what we're doing right now as a culture and a society. It isn't working. Right now, our culture and our society is telling you to devalue yourself. It's telling you to devalue your body. It's telling you to devalue your time, your energy, your emotion. It's telling you to devalue everything that you bring to a relationship. And it's teaching you to be something different. And I'm here to tell you that you are worth way more than what society tells you you're worth. And that you should change the way that you see yourself, change the way that you see your body, change the way that you see what you are going to just give away to a guy, and instead start looking at it as sacred. Take on this word, sacred, right? My body is sacred. My time is sacred. My energy is sacred. Who I spend time with, it's a privilege that I'm giving to somebody. I'm giving somebody my time, and it's worth a lot. I'm giving somebody my body, access to me, and that's worth a lot, right? And it's just shift the way that you start looking at all these things instead of just, I know I'm like running off on a tangent here, but like, instead of looking at it like, oh yeah, let's just meet up, at my place for, dinner or whatever. And then, maybe we'll go to a movie at some point or whatever. Don't do that. Just wait, find out about him. Take your time, learn about him. Is he showing you that he's the right man for you? Is he proving to you that he's going to make a good partner for you, that he's going to be a strong man, that he's going to lead, that he's going to be able to provide, that he's going to be a great partner for you. And what you're looking for is words, is his words in alignment with this? Are his actions in alignment with this? And are these two things in alignment consistently over time? That's what you want to look for here. There, Teresa,
Teresa, yeah.
Teresa, yeah.
Either one.
There you go. So
yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing. It's like, oh, how convenient. We'll go to dinner first at your place and then go out to the movie afterwards.
It probably won't make it to the movie.
Yes, spoiler alert.
It's going to be a Netflix and chill night. Just letting you know.
Yeah, that's a pretty predictable outcome with that one. So let's see. I think we saw another interesting question here. Was it Patty? And him being, I don't think it was Patty's question. That was not. Here's one from Pammy. I'm in a relationship with a man, but we are both married and having bad relationships with our spouses. Do you think I should continue this? We are both in early 50s, confused and lonely. So just to be clear, it sounds like you're in a relationship with him and you're both also married to other people. So you're not really in a relationship. It's more of an affair. That's kind of what it sounds like to me. Is that what you think, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what she's talking about. There's a lot of this going on right now. And I can tell you that it's, it's tough. You're in a tough situation there, Pemmy. You're a really tough situation. And here's what I want to tell you is that you should stay away from doing this thing. You should work your stuff out. It's not a good idea. You're just creating drama and issues and challenges. And I suggest, and this is going to be, it's going to be a little bit controversial for this day and age, but I suggest that you go work on your marriage, let go of that guy and, either work on your marriage or get out of it, one or the other. And if you're both married, what's happening right now is you're probably talking to somebody, and a lot of times what they do and what people do when they're married, this is a very common thing these days, is that people will they will go out and find somebody else who's also unavailable, right? And they will get certain needs met through somebody else. Because right now, what's happening, if you're married and this person's married, is that you guys aren't getting your needs met through your partner at home, which is why you go and find it somewhere else. You find how to get your needs met somewhere else. And the most common reason that this happens, and they've done a lot of studies around this, they found that the most common reason is because there's a lack of passion, which is exactly what we're talking about today, right? Which is femininity. Because if you want to keep passion in a relationship, the most powerful way to do it is through polarity, which is, and the easiest way to do that polarity is masculine, feminine polarity. And so I recommend, we don't know anything about your situation there, Penny, just a little bit about what you said. But what I recommend is that you figure your stuff out at home, go back home and figure some things out there. Whatever it is that, you want to do there. You're an adult, you get to make a decision about what it is that you want to do. But I recommend that you go and look at that first, get that taken care of before you even deal with somebody that you are dating on the side. I don't know, is that too much? What do you guys think? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, leave your thoughts in the comments and questions. We'd love to hear how you're receiving some of this info. Because I would basically echo what Matt said. If you're in an affair with somebody or considering getting into an affair with somebody, you don't want to get into the gray zone ideally, because what happens is if you're in the gray zone internally where you're feeling like you want a relationship, you don't want a relationship. And we've seen this often with women and men where it's like, I don't know if I want to be in a relationship. I don't know if I want commitment, but I still want to have sex. I still want to have some emotional connection sometimes. So I'm just going to get into kind of like an affair situation. I'm going to find somebody who's in a committed situation, who's in a marriage, so I don't have to risk things getting too intimate. And it's this emotional and spiritual gray zone where now you're not really saying yes to what you actually want. Because if you believed that you could have everything that you wanted and you could wave a magic wand, whether that's with your current partner or whether that's with a new partner, most likely that scenario would not involve you having this dual path where you're with one person and you're also with this other person. If you could really paint that picture as the way you want it, then you would create something where you can have everything that you need, most likely in one package. So if you believe that's possible and you say no to what you don't want, no to the gray zone, by default, you're saying yes to what you do want, and you're creating a space to now attract that into your life. Again, whether it's with your current partner or somebody new, the gray zone's never going to ultimately give you what you want, because most likely somebody's going to get hurt. You're probably going to get hurt. It's going to create more messiness, and you're energetically sending mixed signals to God and to the universe about what you actually want. So like what Matt said, you have to clean up the situation with your current man and get that on the right page and paint that picture of what you want with him, or you have to just cut that loose and create openness for something that you actually want. That's not this kind of weird gray zone that will get you into trouble, most likely. So that was a good question from Pammy, right? I think it was Pammy. We have another question here. My ex of 20 years daughter died. I called twice and we talked. It was good. Then he called, then nothing for a month. I call and he's upset because it took me a month to call him. Now 2 months gone. Do you have any thoughts on that, Matt?
So my ex of 20 years daughter died. I called twice when we talked. It was good. Then he called, then nothing for a month. I call and he's upset. It took me a month to call him. Now 2 months gone. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have so many things, so many questions about what's going on here.
Yeah.
There's so much I don't know. I'd need to know more about this situation, but both of you guys, it sounds like, just didn't talk to each other for a month. And it sounds like there was that he was having a hard time, and he, I guess, felt like you should have been reaching out to him, but you weren't. I mean, what you should probably do is just have a conversation with him, like have a real conversation with him. One of the things that a lot of people are trying to avoid these days are real conversations, like conversations that can be tough, that can bring up a lot of challenge and fear and different things. And that's really what you need to have here, is just a real conversation, like, hey, and actually this should have happened, a month or two ago, when you were just talking about, talking to him, figuring out what was going on with him. And he's kind of disappeared. You've disappeared. You're both not talking to each other. Neither one of you know what's going on with the other. I run into this all the time when women come to me and they're like, oh, this guy ghosted me. And I'm like, well, did you contact him? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, how do you know he doesn't think you ghosted him? And that happens very, very often, is that a lot of times people, they're both looking at the other person and going, it's your responsibility to contact me. Well, in a relationship, it's both of your responsibilities to be contacting each other. And even in dating scenarios, there's this thing about leaning back out there, which in my personal opinion, I don't know how you guys feel, but in my personal opinion, a lot of the stuff that's talked about around leaning back is just way too extreme. They'll be like, oh, it's always a man. He needs to contact you and do everything. And I'm like, I don't think so. Most guys, they want to know that you're putting in energy and effort as well. They want to know that you're actually interested in them. They want to know that that you're reciprocating that interest that they have. And so, generally speaking, he probably needs to do most of the work, and you need to do some as well, because he wants to know that you're interested in him. And the number one way to show somebody you're interested is through effort. And so, if I were you, what I'd do there is just talk to him there, Jacqueline. Just talk to him and have a conversation with them, and just, talk to him about what was going on. And, if it requires an apology, apologize. and just talk about what was going on, what he wants and what you want, and, you know, tell him that you miss him, and, you know, get to the emotions of things. There's this great conversational technique out there. It's called SEW. I can't remember the woman's name who created it. She's from Denver, Colorado. But basically, it's like talking about the sensations in your body. So is SEW, sensations, emotions, and then wants. So sensations are just, you know, like talking to him about what's going on with you. Emotions are, you know, I'm feeling really sad. I'm feeling, you know, this, I'm feeling that. And then wants are like what you want. You know, I want to be connected to you. I want to see you. I want to be around you. Right. And this gets you away from the whole thing where you're like arguing about things, and instead puts you in this kind of realm of, you know, just connecting to your emotions and connecting to him through your emotions, or him connecting to you through his emotions, and then just talking about what it is that you want together. And usually what you find is that what you want is often the same thing, and that you guys were just confused because you were waiting on each other or whatever. And what you really need is just to reconnect and to love on each other, and to tell each other that you really want to be with each other.
Yeah, I love that. And that goes back to one of the topics of this video, which is feminine traits that men love. I feel like one of the most feminine ways that you can communicate in that way that Matt was talking about is you want to share what's going on with you, not in a way that is attacking him. And this is a delicate balance, because I feel a lot of women will hear these hear these words like, oh, I need to share my emotions with a man. I need to share how I feel. And then they go to that man, they say like, you make me angry, and you're never doing this, and you make me feel this way, and you're making me feel insecure, and that's because of you, and blah blah blah. So it's like you have these emotions, and the feminine way to share and communicate to a man, which goes back to feminine receptivity, is to simply share the sensations and the emotions and just kind of put it out there. You're not targeting it at him. You're not directly asking for anything yet. First, you want to see that he receives where you are, because men, we're not really mind readers. We don't really know all the time what's going on within you. And this is translating it for him, putting it into words. This is how I'm feeling. These are the sensations. These are the emotions I'm feeling. And almost at that point, you could even just let it sit and just let him receive that. And then he'll figure out what to do with that. If you say, you know, I'm really feeling disconnected and kind of sad that we haven't really talked for a while, and then just let it sit and let him feel into that and be like, oh, she's feeling sad. She's feeling disconnected. Okay, well, why are you feeling that way? Or how can I make you not feel that way? So oftentimes he'll just take the action. The masculine man and the masculine within him wants to solve the problem, and he's going to want to step up and say, well, how can I change that? As long as he's not feeling attacked. If he's feeling attacked, the defenses can go up, and he can say like, whoa, you didn't do this for me, and you're not, why don't you reach out to me? Like what someone was saying here, why didn't you text me? You know, I didn't text you because you weren't texting me. So it can become combative. But if you're simply sharing how you feel, then it can become a bridge. And then you can share what you want from that place. And now he's saying, oh, that's what she wants. Okay, yeah, I want to give that to you. And that's actually what I want too. So let's renegotiate our relationship so we can get on the same page here and both have a win-win where both of our needs are getting met and we're both happy. And it starts with that empowering communication, and from a place of not attacking him, but simply sharing from the feminine what's present for you. What are the emotions? What are the sensations? The most feminine thing in the world are the emotions and sensations in your body. So communicating that lets him feel that feminine energy. So really good stuff with that. And I was curious actually to go a little off script here with the questions, Matt. You were talking about this a little bit before, but what are your thoughts on mirroring? And in the sense of, you know, if a man is investing into a woman, she should match that investment, versus if he's not investing, she should hold back her investment so a woman can avoid getting caught in this loop. You were kind of mentioning it before, but more on the energetics of it. I'm curious if you have any more thoughts on that.
Sure. Yeah. I think that my general rule of thumb that I like to tell women about and give to you, if you're like, hey, what should I do? What should I do here? Right. You want to mirroring to a certain extent is good. Mirroring in general I'm not sure if that's exactly what you want to do. Mirroring is the idea of like, he's doing something, so you do the same, right? Instead, I think what's better is just to look at it as percentages. So looking at like, okay, how much energy and effort is he putting in? You know, and if he's putting in all this energy and effort, what should I be doing? Right. And at that time. And so my recommendation is that you try to stay around like the 30 percentile, 20 to 30 percentile range of like, he's doing, 70% of the work, I'm doing 30%. And I think that's a good spot. So if he's like, taking you out on dates, paying for things, like moving things forward, then you can do, like 30% or whatever. But generally speaking, because those numbers are, a little bit arbitrary. What you want to look at is that you're not going over 50%. There's a lot of talk out there about like this idea of like chasing, right? Like, who's chasing? Am I chasing? Is he chasing? Who's chasing? Do I want him to chase? Am I supposed to be running right now? Is that what makes him chase me? I don't even know, right? And there's a lot of confusion because women are like, oh, well, if I send him a text message, isn't that me chasing him? The answer is no, it's not. Sending one text message is not chasing. There's two things that determine chasing. And one of them is your energy, right? Are you coming from a place of desperation and I need to get him, I gotta grab onto him. And once I grab onto him, I'm not worried that you're going to leave me because I'm just going to follow you, right? That's one form of chasing. The other form of chasing is the amount of energy or effort you're putting in, right? So if you're putting in more than 50% of the effort, I would say that you are the chaser, right? And so you don't ever want to go above 50% because if you go above 50%, one of the differences between men and women out there, just generally speaking, is that most men aren't getting their emotional and physical needs met by women for the most part, right? So if a guy doesn't even like you that much, most guys will still allow you to chase them because they're getting their emotional and physical needs met a lot of times by you, even if they don't like you that much. And so they might allow you to continue doing that because they don't have that happen a lot. They aren't getting access to that normally. And so he's feeling really good getting access to all this stuff that you're giving him while you're chasing him, and he doesn't even like you, right? And you won't find that out if you're the one that's chasing him because you're getting invested, you're getting emotional around it, you're doing all this work, you're like, oh, I can see us together. Our babies are going to be so beautiful, right? You're just so amazing. I love you, right? And you're doing that. And your mind is telling you, oh, you're putting in all this work. It's because you really like this guy so much. He's so amazing. He's the man, man of your dreams, love of your life. You're like your soulmate, right? And then you get all caught up in it. Next thing you know, he's disappearing because he never really even liked you in the first place. And then you're getting all torn up. And the next thing you know, you're coming to me and you're going, Matt, what do I do about this man? And I'm like, you're never going to be the right man, the right woman for the wrong man, right? And so you want to make sure that you're not doing everything and overinvesting. Brody, what was your question again? I totally was.
No, that was good. That was great. That was we're talking about mirroring, and that was
that's really, right. That's right.
Interesting answer. I love the 30% kind of rule. That's really interesting, and yeah, I want to meditate on that a little bit more. I had one question come in from a woman who was asking a follow-up about what I was saying about the gray energy, or some tips for cleaning up the gray energy if we are solo. So I was going to answer this real quick. So if you're single and you're finding that you're in situations where you're attracting men who are sort of available, but they're not available, they're either in a relationship already or they're interested in you, but then they're not interested in you, the hot and cold, it's typically a sign that you are in the gray zone, meaning you're not fully clear within yourself of what you actually want and that you believe that you can have it. And on top of that, that you set boundaries around it. So that's the first step in those order, that the three that I just gave you is first, you have to be clear on what you want. Number two, you have to believe and be determined that you're going to create that kind of relationship. And then number three is you have to say no to basically everything that's not that. Of course, there's some exceptions, and you can trust your intuition, but for the most part, you have to say no to everything that's not that. By you saying no to everything that's not what you want, you're by default saying yes to what you do want. Because if you're attracting men who are like that, that's most likely because you are emotionally unavailable yourself. You're not fully committed. You're maybe holding on to past traumas and bad relationships and believing that the past is going to equal the future, which is not the case. So you need to cut that. And it starts with getting really clear on what you want and believing it's possible. It's hard to gather that evidence for what's possible. So what you can do is start to look at other relationships, look for inspiration, people around you, friends, family, people online, gurus, whatever you might find, and say, that's what I want. And start to picture that for yourself. And when you have a man who's now just kind of being wishy-washy with you, it's time to set a boundary and to say, you know what, that's not actually what I want. My standards, like I'm a queen. I believe I'm having a committed relationship, and I'm not getting into a friends with benefits situation or cheating, being your what do they call it? Being your like mid, so I was going to say midwife. What's the name for a woman who's like, on the side for like a powerful man? Why can't I get that name?
I don't
Anyways.
know. I know what you're talking about. I got your back here, Brody. I get what you're talking about. All right. And I don't remember the name either.
Yeah, I'm going to have to Google that. But yeah, so basically you're not going to be that woman, his side woman. You're going to be the main woman, and you have to say no for a while. It's going to be tough, but you're getting yourself internally aligned and clear so that you can then attract the right one. So that's what I would say about that. Do you have any thoughts on that? Anything else to add, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, some people do this because they're trying to save their marriage, right? They don't want to walk away from their marriage, but they're also not getting their emotional needs met. And so they're like, okay, well, I'm going to go somewhere else so that I don't lose this marriage. But at the same time, I'm getting this other stuff somewhere else. And it like what you're talking about, it just creates this gray zone. And really the growth happens, right? It's actually the easy way out. Right. It's I'm going to get the best of both worlds, but not actually deal with anything. And what it usually does is it prevents you from actually growing and maturing and having an amazing relationship with somebody. And instead you just have all this drama and nonsense and all these other things going on. And it just eats away at your soul after a while. And I suggest that you go through hell and you come out the other side, because that's where all the beauty lies. That's where that's where you can find a great relationship, and if you don't, what's going to end up happening is that there's going to be a lot of pain in your future. And even if you don't want it to come.
Totally. Mistress is the word I was looking for. Some women saved us in the comments. Thanks, Kathleen, Becky, Shannon, Tamara. You're better than Google. All right. So then we have another question here from Maria. I've been with a guy for 18 months and he decided that he didn't want to have sex anymore because of religious reasons. I don't want to cheat, but I've been thinking about it. What should I do? So you've been thinking about cheating because he doesn't want to have sex with you anymore. So what I would recommend, Maria, is having a conversation. So if you're in a situation with a guy who doesn't want to have sex because of religious reasons, or it doesn't even matter, there's some reason he doesn't want to have sex, but he wants a relationship with you. You have to make a decision if you're going to be okay with that, first off. Number two, you need to communicate with him and see what's the timeline that he has in mind. Like, is this until marriage? Is there a timeline that he's going to want to do that at some point? You said because religious reasons, so I'm assuming it's with marriage. Are you okay with that or not? And if you're willing to hold out for that, and if you're willing to see him as that man that you want to spend the rest of your life with, that's a decision you're going to have to make if you're going to be willing to wait. If not, I definitely wouldn't cheat. We talked about this before. Don't get into the gray zone. Avoid that. You either have to make a decision with him that, yes, that's what you want, or you have to exit yourself out of that relationship and go, sleep around or do whatever you want to, or do whatever you want to do. So you just have to be clear. Don't cheat, because it's always going to end up causing messiness for you, for him, for others. And this lack of clarity that you're sending to God, to the universe, about what you actually want, you're sending mixed signals. So you're not going to get what you want ever, likely. And you're going to end up with trauma, most likely. You're going to have to forgive yourself, do deep healing. And then you're probably going to be the one that's then going to be waiting to have sex until you're married. So That's what I would recommend with that. Any thoughts you have to share on that, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that you're talking about until marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Maria, yeah, if you want to, you need to have a conversation with them. You've been together for 18 months. How long are you going to be in a relationship with him? That, is this moving towards marriage? Are your values aligned? It might be that this isn't the right guy for you. And so it's like the whole thing about cheating, like, I don't know when it became cool to cheat in our culture, but it's definitely become cool, and it's not cool. It's not cool at all. And it's not good for you. It's not good for him. It's not good for anybody. What we need to do, and and not saying that anybody here is perfect or anything, but is start, reconnecting with our values and reconnecting with our word, and looking at this stuff and going, okay, what if cheating wasn't an option at all? If we remove cheating from the table, what do you really want here? And is this the right guy for you? And why are you connected to this guy if he's not the right guy? And, like, just put everything aside and say, okay, what am I doing? What are you doing here? Like, really, why are you in this relationship with this guy if it's not going in the right direction for you, or your values aren't aligned, or any of that kind of stuff? And either how do you get into a relationship with the right guy, or how do you work things out with this guy so that you're moving towards the relationship that you want? And any other choice out there is, it's just moving in the wrong direction. We like, it's not serving you. This isn't serving you. These ideas, while I'm very grateful for you to, acknowledge them here with us and talk to us about them, cheating isn't going to get you what you want. It's just going to get you drama. It's going to get you pain. It's going to get you, questioning your own sense of, loyalty and identity. It's going to make it so that you're more likely to cheat in the future. We all live in patterns. You live in patterns. I live in patterns. Everybody lives in patterns. And so the question is, what patterns are you in, and what patterns would actually serve you? What patterns would actually give you the life that you want? And I can tell you that cheating isn't a good pattern to be in. And I appreciate that you're here talking to us about it instead of actually going out and doing it, which shows that you have some resistance and hesitancy to that. And it's for good reason. Instead of doing that, either work things out with him or break things off with him and go find somebody that is in alignment with who you are.
Yeah, that's awesome. And since we're getting closer to wrap up time, I was thinking maybe we can do some rapid fire. I'll take one question real quick. You can take one question real quick. You up for that?
Sure, let's do it.
All right, cool. I'll take this one here. So Becky said, how to be feminine and let him lead when he is younger than me. I don't want to overwhelm him with stories of my life that don't involve him, but I don't want to use lessons from my past for us now. I don't quite understand the second part, but I'm going to answer the first part because I have experience with that, because I'm actually slightly younger than my wife. So I definitely have tips for that. So how to become feminine with a man who is younger than you. It's the same the way you become feminine with a man who's older than you, or any man. You just have to ramp it up even more. So that means being receptive. It means letting him lead. It means rewarding him when he leads, acknowledging him, appreciating him, letting him be your hero, and saying things like, you're my hero. You're such a good leader. I love it when you make decisions. I love it when you plan out the dates. You're so strong. You're so amazing. That's going to help build the polarity, even when in a older situation, you might feel like you're naturally more capable than him, or stronger in some ways, or smarter in some ways. So you have to be really good at doing that and encouraging him and seeing him as the strong man that you want him to be, seeing what he's capable of. This goes for all women. You want to see a vision of your man, what he would be 5-10 years from now, as a much better man, and see how can you create the feminine space to lift him up into that, to help support him into being the strong, powerful, successful, ambitious, whatever you might want to see, whatever traits you might want to see in him, and cultivate that, nurture that, cultivate that, and appreciate him for being that. So that's what I'll say about that. And then we have one for you here, Matt, which is, you want to read it?
At age 29, single, still waiting for God's perfect sexes for marriage. That's my belief. You say no. If the guy is willing to wait, that means a lot. Why men ghost me after I told them? Because they're the wrong guy for you. That's why, Jenny. Because the guy that God has for you that's going to come into your life is not those guys. And that's okay. There's going to be a guy that you're going to meet, and he's going to want to wait with you. He's going to think that you're amazing and beautiful. I think you mentioned down here that you're a virgin. He's going to be so excited that he's finally met that. Because right now we live in a culture of superficiality, of the hookup culture, where everybody's just hooking up with each other willy-nilly, sleeping with each other like it doesn't mean anything. And there's plenty of guys out there that are looking for something real, and it's very difficult for them to find it. And most guys, though, just like most women, if I go and talk to most women out there today and I tell them that I'm waiting for marriage to have sex, they're going to disappear on me. And it's the same with guys with you, is that most guys are going to disappear on you when you tell them this stuff. And that's okay, because those men are just weeding themselves out. They're taking themselves out of the running of being the man for you. And instead of getting all caught up on, oh, there's this one guy and I said this to him and he disappeared and ghosted me, instead you go, perfect. Next, where is that man? Where is this man that is going to step up, that is going to be excited, that's going to be proud of me, that's going to look at me and be like, oh, I finally met this woman, because I've gone my whole life and it's so difficult to find a woman who's actually doing this, who's actually standing by God's word, and that is willing to wait for marriage, for sex. Like I'm so grateful that I found this woman right here. So that's what you want to look for, Jenny.
Awesome. We have another question here from Miss Liz. And she said, I had plans with a guy I'm newly dating. He didn't show up today and I haven't heard from him. He's done this before. Our connection is off the charts. Then he does this. It's so hurtful. The first thing I'll say, Miss Liz, is if you're attracted to a guy who's ghosted you and he's not out of communication, but you feel like the connection is off the charts and I just want to be with him, what I would present to you is a question. Are you actually attracted to him because he ghosted you? Because he's emotionally unavailable? You may say a knee-jerk reaction, of course not. Why would I be attracted to a guy like that? Why would I want a guy like that? But for you to inquire within yourself, it can be very revealing often for you to see who in your life were you first attracted to or first had love for that didn't give you what you needed. Maybe it was a dad, maybe it was a mom, maybe it was an early relationship, maybe it was another relative or friend. Look into yourself for that answer, because that can give you a clue as to why you're attracting this behavior from men. You're creating an unconscious wiring that of emotionally unavailable men equals I'm attracted to them, equals love. I call it attraction anxiety. Me and Antia call it attraction anxiety, where you're feeling anxiety and you mistake it for attraction. So that could be one of the reasons why he's actually doing this and why you feel your connection is off the charts. Because normally, I'm imagine if you said he's done this before, if a guy did this to you before, you'd probably dump him. If you were a high value woman, you say, look, I'm not to be treated that way. He would have to really make an effort to get your forgiveness back for you to accept another date with him or a relationship. The fact that you maybe didn't do that and you went up for another date with him and he ghosted you again shows that you're not valuing yourself and that you're overvaluing this attraction and not looking at the values behind it and where this might be rooted from. So those are just some inquiries I want to give to you that can hopefully give you some answers longer term with that situation. So that's that one. And what do you think, Matt? How are you doing time wise?
I'm doing fine, man. We can
You
keep
want to
going
take
if you
a
want
couple
to.
more?
Sure.
All right, we can take like 2 or 3 more here. It's a longer one. You can maybe just get the gist of it. if you want.
All right. Kathleen says, how early in the relationship can you bring up tough topics, especially if there's been a brief online and the language from him is triggering in a past relationship turned out to be an attempt at a romance scam and then shared directly and honestly too much too soon. In retrospect, I could have communicated my reservations in a way that directly bring up the topic, but thoughts we had to. Okay. So, Kathleen, here's my thoughts on it. There's a couple different things. One is, I mean, yeah, to one extent, there's like, okay, this guy's saying these things and it's bringing up this stuff. The more that you've spent time with somebody, the easier it is to bring up anything, and it's not a big deal. The less time that you've spent with somebody, the more that if you start bringing up all this crazy stuff that's happened in your life and is going on, the weirder that it is and the more likely that they're just going to be like, I'm not sure if I want to deal with all this. Right. And so if you're like, okay, well, how soon should I start bringing this stuff up? I would say that you'd want to do it on the date. That would probably be the best time. My recommendation, if you meet a guy online, is that you don't stay online for very long. Just a couple days is fine. And you don't want to go any longer than a week to 2 weeks. That's how you make sure that you don't end up getting scammed or ending up with a pen pal or, somebody that's catfishing you or something. Is make sure that you don't go 2 weeks online without having plans to actually meet up with each other. And then when you go and you talk, there's 2 ways there's 3 ways, I'd say, of actually doing a date. And I would call all 3 of these things dates. One would be a phone date. The second one would be a video chat date. And then the third one would be an in-person date. All 3 of those things could be your first date. Any 3 of those things could be your first date. I recommend that you get on the phone or do a video chat before you meet men. This actually is a great way to screen out men because when you actually do meet them in real life, you'll go on better dates with better men, and there's a better chance that they will actually be somebody that'll lead to something if you do that. And then saying with that, all that said, I would say that when you're actually talking to them and in the middle of the conversation, somewhere in the middle, you bring up something and you just talk about it. My favorite way to do it is something that comes from the business world, and it's called the sandwich. And the sandwich starts off with something good at the top and then it ends up with something good at the bottom, which isn't actually what a sandwich is because the bread usually isn't that great, but just hear me on this one. All right. So the top of it's like, hey, I really love talking to you. You just seem like a really cool guy so far that I know you, and then you bring up whatever it is that the issue is, which is like, hey, you said this one thing and, I felt a little bit triggered because I had like this issue before. And then you either ask him for an agreement or you give him another compliment, one of the two. Right. So you can either be like, I just want to let you know, because I just think you're just so awesome and stuff. And I just want to keep talking to you. Or you ask them like, hey, this is more for like a boundary, is you ask them to like stop doing something, or something that you want is usually what it is. Right. Like the so thing. Ask them for something that you want. Like, hey, can you do this, or can we do this, instead of what it is that he was trying to ask you for or do or whatever. Without more information about what you're actually saying, I would say that that's probably the best way to do it.
Great. I think Will Smith has a message for you too, Matt.
Keep my wife's name out your mouth.
Oh my gosh. Pauline says, thank you both for your work. I follow on TikTok. Awesome. Check us out. Got a lot of good stuff up there. Both got a lot of videos. We'll do one more question here. Distance justifies it because, oh yeah, this is the one I saw. We can both chime in on this one, and then we'll wrap it up. Heather said he slept with someone while we were dating long distance, but he justifies it because I didn't want to put a label on us until I moved to his town. But we had been seeing each other for a year. Is this considered cheating? So Heather, this is a great reason why. Here, let me fix. Hey Heather, this is a great reason why it's so important to have clear communication about relationship expectations. Now, if you haven't actually had the conversation about exclusivity with him, I would not consider it cheating if he slept with somebody else. We are making assumptions that the other person is exclusive or that we have a serious relationship, but they could be totally on another page and see this as obviously this is just casual friends with benefits. So it's very important for you to both at some point talk about that, get on the same page so that you avoid hurt feelings. I believe in relationships, the only way you could ever really hurt somebody's feelings, other than, of course, being abusive and doing really bad things, is by not managing expectations properly. So if we manage expectations properly, you will almost never have a conflict in a relationship. That's my belief. So what you want to do with him is you want to have conversations in the future about, are we exclusive? Like, should I be dating other people? That's a good way to put it out to him, is like, should I be seeing other people? Because it presents a challenge to him. Like, oh, wait, you're going to see other people? I don't know if I'm okay with that. And so then now you open up the door to this conversation about, well, what are we then? What should we be? Is this something serious? And you've presented this challenge, so now he's going to want to lock you down. I remember even when I was dating my wife Antia, I found out that while we were dating, she was dating somebody else. And the minute I found out about that, I started feeling within myself, I don't want that. I don't want her to see other guys. And as soon as I had that feeling, I knew that I was going to commit to her. I was going to have a relationship with her. So that's what you want to create within him by having those conversations, that ideally he's going to realize, I don't want to lose her. And you won't have any of these weird conversations about him cheating. Was it cheating? Was it not cheating? Were we serious at that time? Were we not serious? You don't know at this point because those conversations had never been had, and you probably just didn't want to ruffle his feathers by bringing it up. So that's what I mentioned with that. Do you have any thoughts on that, Matt?
I totally agree. I mean, if you didn't want to talk about exclusivity, or you didn't want to put a label on things, you didn't want to have that conversation, that's that's on you, right? And like, should he have gone and done that? I don't know. He might have been assuming that you were doing that as well, and that you guys were just talking to each other, right? And that's why it's so important to have these conversations. I don't particularly recommend that you tell them, ask. I mean, I think that's kind of a funny way of doing it. Like, hey, should I be seeing other people right now? What do you think? You think I should that guy's cute over there. Should I go date him right now? I don't,
Like, I should respond to my Tinder messages, or should I delete the app?
Yeah. But I think that, having the conversation is important, and I disagree with a lot of people on this one, but I believe that it's the woman's job to bring up the relationship conversations. That is my firm belief. I believe it's the man's job to push things forward from a sexual and romantic standpoint. And I believe that it's the woman's job to bring up the conversations around relationship stuff. Ideally, the man brings it up and he has that conversation. You have more power and control if he does that, and you're in a better position if he does that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, most guys that I know are willing to sleep with women forever without being in a relationship with them. And most women that I know are not willing to do that with guys, especially guys that they really like. And so if you're going to sleep with a guy, I recommend that you have that conversation. If you're starting to feel attached to a guy, I recommend that you have that conversation. If you've been seeing a guy for a long time, I recommend that you have that conversation. And you can't assume that he's going to do what you want him to do if you're not having that conversation, because there's no stakes in it for him, right? There's no there's no there for him. So I would, I wouldn't overly hold it against him. I would look for patterns though, right? Like I said, we all live in patterns. And so, is this a one-time thing where he's, justifying this thing that happened and he's making an excuse for it because it's it's justified? Or is this a pattern of things that happen with him that might actually be pointing to something that's bigger than this and deeper than this and more concerning than this. So that's what I would say there, Heather.
Yeah, she followed up. She said, we were planning our future. He didn't want me seeing anyone else, and we were high school sweethearts. Yeah, I mean, just because he said he didn't want you seeing anyone else doesn't mean that he was saying he wasn't going to see anyone else. And it's also just putting a desire out there, like, I don't want you to see anyone else. Okay, well, that doesn't really mean a lot at the end of the day. That's like pretty easy to say, but is he actually committing to that as well? So that's why the clarity. And if you were high school sweethearts, you may not have had that emotional level of maturity yet at that time, or I don't know how long ago that happened, but yeah, you need to be having those clear agreements. Otherwise, yeah, who knows if it was cheating? Did he really cheat, or was he just still doing what he was always doing, which was he was single and you were single? It's kind of unclear there, but yeah, there was some emotional investment there, so it's kind of a little bit of a gray zone, but yeah, it's a tough situation either way. Michelle says you're looking sharp, Matt.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that.
Oh yeah.
Did a lot to look sharp today. Made sure I'm looking good. So thank you. I appreciate. Hey, and anybody that wants to give me compliments, I'm a sucker for compliments. One of my second primary love language is words of affirmation. So if you want to say nice things about me, I will not reject you for saying kind things. I encourage this behavior. So
Matt,
thank you.
Can you do the Patrick Bateman face?
I don't know what face Patrick Bateman is.
Kind of like that. You have to look it up on YouTube afterwards, from the movie American Psycho.
Okay.
It's kind of become a meme. But yeah, so anyways, that's it for tonight. So Matt, if anyone wants to find out about all your products and all stuff, Matt, where's the best place you would like to send them to?
Just Google me. Just Google Matthew Coast. Just look up Matthew Coast and just go look at my stuff. I came out with a new book recently. It's on Amazon. It's about first dates. Just look up Matthew Coast on Amazon and you will find my plethora of books, specifically my first date book, which is a great one. All of them are great though. So check them out. Thank you.
All right. Awesome. Well, it's great to have you here, man. Glad you can join us for this live. And Antia had to get off, as everyone probably noticed, because our baby was needing some attention. But it was good to have her while she was on for a little while. And stay tuned. If you haven't yet, we also recommend taking our free love quiz. You can go to getlovequiz.com or gethisdesire.com. We just kind of updated that. So I would highly recommend checking that out as well. And stay tuned for more great videos. Follow Matt, follow us, TikTok, Instagram. Some people are talking about that. You can find us on almost all platforms. I believe Matt's even on medium.com now. So lots of different ways to get his content. And yeah, we'll talk to you guys later on other powerful trainings. Glad you were tuning in, and talk to you later.